Greetings and welcome to another WIP Workshop creator interview on RPGs Uncovered. Today I am joined by Richard and Erik of Team Rex Games for the Vault RPG. This is a fresh and modern new take on the classic cyberpunk fantasy genre. Anybody who's been following me for really any amount of time probably knows I love that genre. I'm an old school Shadowrun fan, but Shadowrun is probably it's one of the more complicated, more controversial systems out there, and I am really excited for Vault because it looks like it has a lot of the same feel to it, but it looks new, it looks modern, it looks refreshed, and it has so many other new additions to this to make it a really interesting new addition to not just the cyberpunk genre, not just the fantasy genre, but both of those squeezed together, which is something I always really enjoy. So, for anybody just joining us, this is another WIP Workshop creator interview. I do these every Wednesday or so. We have a number lined up for the next several weeks, and there are always many fantastic games that are currently being developed or crowdfunded or released all the time. Too many for me to do interviews with everybody, but I try to get to who I can. But I urge everybody out there looking for new games to follow RPGs Uncovered on Twitter. Drop into our Discord. We have a bunch of great creators, indie creators on there, and follow us on Twitter because I'm always throwing out and retweeting different promotions for Kickstarters and crowdfunding and playtesting and all of that. So that's a great way to keep an eye on what's going on out in the peripheries of the TTRPG horizon. But without any further ado, I want to get to talking about Vault because this looks like it is just an action-packed. There's a lot crammed into this game in the best of ways, and I want to see how much we can cover today in our interview. So let me throw this over to Richard and Erik. I know you said you are a team of about 5 people or so, but introduce yourself, say hello, give us the elevator pitch of Vault before we get started. Let's pass it over to Richard first. Hello and welcome.
Hi. Um, so I'm Richard Davis. I'm the founder and creative director of Vault. Uh, we have been working on the game for about 3 years now. It started a lot of the same ways that you've probably already guessed, where there were a whole bunch of games that we really enjoyed playing, and different pieces of different games were great. So we thought we would try remixing them and coming up with our own blend and seeing if it didn't work for us and some other people pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think as far as introductions go, Erik, you wanna jump in first?
Sure. And I'm Erik, and I am one of the partners at Team Rex Games. I wear many different hats. But as far as like an elevator pitch goes, Vault is a fast, gritty, action-packed role-playing game. We use a 2d6 system to, regulate on how things occur and how well things do. It's set in a future Earth with Fey magic returned and cyberware technology brought to us, and all kinds of the fantasy elements that we've been talking about, and all the futury dystopia. Everyone's out for themselves, mercenaries trying to claw through the muck system. And we think we've really brought that to light and how to like live in that world and be in it, and have the most enjoyable experience while playing.
Awesome. Awesome. Yes, so we're gonna talk a bit more about the setting and all of the robust amount of rules and tools and themes that are baked in to Vault. But what I like to start off with here on RPGs Uncovered with my creator interviews is actually getting to know the creators a little bit more. So what I'll throw this out to both of you and you can just jump in. What's led you throughout, your own life experiences, through your own gaming experiences, players GM creating games? What led you to make Vault? Why do it?
So I grew up on Shadowrun, D6 Star Wars, Second Edition D&D, GURPS, those types of games, and Most of those are pretty hard to get into off the bat. And I feel like you can do a lot of what they were trying to do with a lot of the mechanics and things that have been designed over the years, just cleaner and a little bit easier to pick up, and still keep a lot of that depth and like variety of characters that can be played and the themes and all that kind of stuff. Um, so that's really our main passion behind the project, is just trying to really make it fun for people who've been playing games forever and easier to get into for people who want to pick it up. Um, what about you, Eric? Anything else?
Yeah, and I have been an avid role player and home brewer for many, many, many moons. And even a little splash of some war game stuff in there too. And a lot of our kind of passion for having the minis and and the setup and like measuring things out and getting that great positioning, like that kind of lends itself to what we've made too. Yeah, and the idea of like having quick, succinct, put together turns, because everyone hates when everything drags out or you get analysis paralysis and things like that.
Yes, and plenty of those older games that you mentioned are fraught with those sort of pitfalls. So what would you say sets Vault aside from those older games? What draws out that more fast-paced cinematic approach to it?
We've made a really big effort to make the game visual.
Hmm.
Uh, we're really trying to put the art that we get commissioned and that we have access to really front and center. It's a really big piece of the way the book is designed. If you get a chance to look at the demo, Eric put together a good portion of the charts that are in the demo, but we're really trying to use um, the graphics to help express the world. We're definitely going to get into this more, but our GM screen is a really good example of kind of how we're embodying that passion. Instead of a GM screen just being a wall that is kind of in between the game master and the players, we want to turn it into a communication device. So all of our cards are designed to have the full art of the thing that you're encountering on one side of them and all of the rules for that thing on the back, so that when it slides into the GM screen, the players are seeing what they're encountering, and the game master doesn't have to flip pages, figure out where these rules for this one thing that it can do might be. All of that will be referenced on the back of the GM screen, or actually on the card, so it's right there in front of them. So we're really trying to lower the barrier of entry while turning something that I generally never use the GM screen when game mastering.
Mm,
Now I'll use this one because I actually feel like it's helping me communicate with my players rather than like putting up a barrier between us.
right.
Some other things on the player side too is every time we've made like a kind of like art, like how do we want to make this mechanic work in the game, we've always tried to add to the simplicity of it, so that like if you're going to full auto your machine gun into the crowd of enemies, well, you know that if you're targeting this many enemies, it's minus that many to each hit, and then you roll one set of dice to figure out if you hit, and then one set of damage to all the ones that you did hit. No, oh, I got to do his stuff, and I got to do his stuff, and I got to do their stuff, and I got to do that one stuff, and trying to reduce that headache, um, as well as we do chips and tokens for player resources. That's a big part of our game, and we really love the idea of these tactile elements that we can see what we have in front of us. I know I have this many magic points left to spend on spells this turn. I know that my drone operator person can do a couple more of actions because he's got all these chips in front of them that let them make dodges on their robots or attack or make it stronger, better attacks. Some things like that. And we also have a very cool dodge mechanic. You want to talk about that, Richard?
Yeah, so we also wanted to make combat go as quick as possible. We also wanted to make it a conversation. So a game master isn't asking, what's your armor class? The first question they're asking is, would you like to dodge? This is what's coming at you. And then the player will respond, no, I don't want to dodge. My defense is this number. Or yes, I do want to dodge. My defense is this better number. And that's also one of these resource chips that gets spent each turn. You get them back. But it helps you kind of need to pay attention to what's going on the table while the combat is going on, so that you can know, well, those three guys over there attacked my friend. There's not really enough attacks left for me to be too terribly concerned. I guess I can spend my dodges, or oh man, each one of these guys is firing like 3 times. I'm going to really have to prioritize which attacks I'm dodging. Trying to get away from that syndrome of like, well, it's not my turn anymore. I'm going to go get a drink. Let me know how much damage I took at the beginning of my next turn, because there was really nothing I could do about it anymore. So we're trying to keep people more engaged and feel like they have more agency in the combat.
Yeah, and all that tries to lend itself to that kind of like, we're playing, we're all doing the thing, and make it snappy and make it efficient, but also keeps you in that story, make you feel like you're part of it.
Nice, nice. Yeah, so I do notice looking through the Kickstarter, looking through some of your other videos, and of course what you just said. This game does have a lot of physical resources associated with it, and they're all beautiful. They all look like they'd be very useful in keeping everybody engaged and focused. I like what you said about the tactile involvement with players. Do you have any plans for this new age of digital gaming, online gaming, because especially since the plague hit, not as many people are at tables with boards and screens and tokens. Do you have digital resources or plans for digital resources?
Yeah, I'll speak this one, and Richard, chime in if I forget anything. But first and foremost, on the Kickstarter, all the tiers come with all of the digital content. It's kind of a freebie that we wanted to give away, make sure people knew that it was available, and that the stuff that was getting made was all also designed for that realm too. And one of the things that highlights that is our demo. I've tried to make all of these assets that are great for like, oh, we have a card system that involves, how to infiltrate the complex that you're going to, and that is a big mat that sits in your, Roll20 or whatever screen and lets people, oh, I can read through all my options and then reveal what the back of the card is and stuff like that. We're coming up with digital maps as much as we can. And what else? Oh, and we have boss boards, which I'll let Richard talk a little bit more, but we're going to make all of them digital assets as well, so that if you're doing your VTT, you can have your game master copy off to your side, look at that on your computer, and all your players have a version that they can look at, so that there's not all this like question about, oh, where can I attack, or what are all these parts and what do they do. Well, there's a good explanation in front of folks, but I'll let Richard talk more.
Yeah, boss boards are definitely one of the things that I think works almost better on a VTT than it does in person. The way it's formatted, yeah, great.
Oh,
Oops.
maybe.
You'll see the picture of the big giant boss thing that you are fighting, and then the players will get a version of this that gives them some information about each of the different locations on that bad guy, and then the players will get to choose what locations they want to attack and in what order they want to try and like knock out the rocket launcher or knock out the arms or take out the legs, in an effort to eventually get to the thing that will let them win that fight. But it'll give them a bunch of different strategies that they can work out. We've probably run the Kill Bob demo, I don't know, 16, 17 times.
More probably, yeah.
And I think maybe I've seen it done nearly the same way once.
Mm.
So like the way that people end up getting into the fight, and then what kind of decisions that they make and which routes they try to go for actually fighting that thing. The VTT is nice on that front, just because we make it a handout that everyone just gets to look at, as opposed to needing a bunch of printouts that go in front of all the players. And then it's pretty easy for them to just kind of window back and forth, kind of figuring out what they want to do and talking about it that way. Another thing that I think we do that will help VTT players is the way we have our cards formatted. The art is separated from the rules. So
Mm-hmm.
it'll be really easy for you to grab the panel of the art that is that thing, and then also make that a handout, so that you can just show that art to the person without needing to do a bunch of like clipping and Googling and figuring out how
Mm-hmm.
you're actually going to represent that thing. Um, So I think those are the two big things I've noticed that I think will help VTT players. Also, the players can still have the tokens in front of them while they're playing on a VTT and still get that visceral feeling.
Hmm.
Because really, it's there for them to track, not necessarily for like the game master to be watching them very closely and making sure they're not spending too much of their things.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, so we've kind of jumped back and forth between referencing various rules, different parts of the setting, and your own design philosophy. That's how this more conversational approach works. But let's dive a little bit more into the gameplay specifics, because I think that's when somebody is looking for a new game, once they figure out the genre, the general themes and general approach of the game, what they really want to know is, how do you create a character? How does combat work? What the general gameplay loop is? So I think that's where I like to start this discussion. What does general gameplay look like? Does it have a built-in structure, something like Forged in the Dark's games? Is it a heist-based game? Is it a pastoral, just go out and explore, see what happens game? What is the general play style that you're going to get out of Vault?
Yeah, so I think there's two main play styles that we have, and the main one that most players and GMs and stuff will live in is the mission space. So you receive missions from your game master or from um, like in-game patrons, the Johnsons of our
Mm-hmm.
world, and um, you'd go do that job, or you've cracked a lead on something for someone's backstory or something like that, and you go on that mission to go help them get revenge or get the thing they need to build their latest cool sci-fi shenanigans. So that'll all be in mission space. Um, but then there's also the other side where people spend a little bit less time, but is almost the more rewarding part of some of this, is the downtime system.
Mm-hmm.
um, we try to make it feel like day to day you are this character living in this world, and while you're not going on merc work every night, you might be building your next creation, you might be shopping and getting in goods with your dealer so you can get the next best piece of tech that comes off the corpo shelves, or you've got the lead on your lost lover or someone that you need to track down. That stuff gets handled mostly in the downtime system, where you're kind of making choices and training, spending your resources that you gain on the missions, on those events, and uh, hitting those downtime bricks is like, it's so fun to like have a good downtime session because you made enough money on
Mm-hmm.
the last mission. You're not scrounging in the dumpster, for example, is a thing that can end up happening.
Mm.
But yeah, Richard, you talk more about the missions? Because I know there's a lot in those that I haven't talked about.
Yeah. So the name of the game, Vault, is named after the in-world app, which is the gig work app, the Uber DoorDash of mercenary work.
Mm-hmm.
So the premise is that the game master can present as many missions to their players as they want, and we have like a mission briefing format that they can use to kind of make that go a little bit quicker and easier. And then the players get to pick what mission they want to go on. There's a lot of advice that we have in the GM section for if you want to do a more story-driven narrative style, but for the general gameplay loop that we're building, it's the players pick a mission, they go on that mission, hopefully they get paid uh, by succeeding. Uh, then then they get to pick how long they want to take off between that and their next mission, and how much of that downtime they want to allocate to doing different things. Um, and that has enough structure in it to where you're going to be spending money in between missions, which will help encourage the players, even if they get a good payday, to either just do even cooler things with that downtime and then still want to go on missions again, or um, keep saving up that money for the next big buy that they want to make, while figuring out what's the most useful thing they can be doing for themselves or for how that character wants to develop. Um, and then we're doing a lot of encouraging for the game master to actually spend some time when people are doing something that seems like it's really going to be a big aspect of that character, to do a little 20-minute one-off session with that player in that scene, just to kind of role play out like, oh, you went partying that night, and it turns out that on this random chart you met the love of your life. Let's see what that might have looked like. And then that will be a new contact that they've gained that they can continuously build up, or lose rating with because the relationship's not going so well. So
Nice,
uh,
nice. So there's a little bit of slice of life to this game that you can insert in between your going out on mercenary missions.
yeah,
Nice.
One of the other things I just want to add in about mission work too is that we have an optional system that is on cards that we'll be releasing, and that's the infiltration and the chase system.
Mm.
And basically on, oh, this is never going to show up, but that's fine. On any of these cards, there is options that the different players can pick that are most, whatever's most suited to their strength as a character. So if on this approach card, if they're the run in guns blazing person, there's an option for them. If they're a talk your way in or a sneak your way in, there's also options for those. And then there's like set checks. So even if you didn't want to like exactly follow the card, it's good inspo for the game master to throw down and have just like, oh, I needed to build this mission on the fly. Oh, well, I know exactly how this is going to happen. The other fun one is the chase system, and like if you're leaving the mission after that bank heist, or you have to deal with the corpo guards that are chasing you down still, or the biker gang that you just pissed off their leader on, and going through all the motions of like, oh, there's a helicopter that comes in and now there's a card for that. Now we have to deal with while we're driving through intersections and avoiding baby carriages and stuff. Now we have to also shoot down this helicopter that might be chasing us out into the boonies as far as we can get away, or we need to get to that safe house on time, or we even have aerial ones for if you're falling out in a parachute or something. But like that, a bunch of that kind of mechanical work can be done for a GM, and it can be arbitrated really cleanly and fairly, and it's all set up ahead of time. Again, optional system. Some people love to run all that chase mechanic themselves or whatever, and that's cool. We just have another thing on top of it to help try to make their lives easier.
Nice, nice. Both very important staples of the genre, I'd say. Love it.
Yeah.
So as far as tools for the GM, it seems like there's a fairly modular system set up to allow you to create missions and adapt missions as need be on the fly.
yeah. Hacking is also that way.
Hmm.
All of our hacking is also done on these same tarot-sized cards, and so if you decide that you have some pretty good hacking skill and you want to overload a toaster to make it explode, the game master can literally pull a few cards off the top of a deck and create an appropriately challenging hack for that thing that they want to do.
Mhm.
So they won't have to have prepared every circuit panel, every door, everything they might want to get hacked ahead of time. They can go and look at these, because the way that they end up getting arranged, they kind of turn into like a 3 to 5 minute puzzle basically. And you can set those up ahead of time so that you have like, I know I want this mega safe door to be really, really challenging for the hacker when they get there. So I'm going to lay it all out and have it known what it's going to be, and then you just flip it over in front of them, and that's what that one was. And then all the others you really don't actually have to prepare if you don't feel like it.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I know I am an old school Shadowrun decker, and I love the old school Shadowrun decking rules. We could have a whole interview, a whole 1 hour interview just talking about
mechanics.
your right, yeah, yeah. Just talking about decking rules and all of that. But I will pick your brain on that later because there is much more to Vault than just the hacking and cyberspace aspect to it. But it's nice that that there seems to be there seems to be two main ways that hacking seems to go, and it's either the very open-ended, very complex, very nuanced decking that you get from Shadowrun, like the Shadowrun 5th edition era, or there's the Cyberpunk 2070 Cyberpunk Red, which basically just turns it into a point and click minigame.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like this falls somewhere in the middle there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
trying to walk that very fine line of like it shouldn't be just one dice roll because
Hmm.
that's oh boy, my character does the one thing that they do really well and it's one dice roll, cool. And not the like, well, I need everyone else to take a 30-minute break while I
Hmm.
solve this. And yeah, trying to walk that thin line. We have like set numbers of attempts so that like that time limits it a little bit. And each attempt is in theory kind of one of your actions in
Hmm.
combat. So like if it's guns blazing time and like half the party's fighting off the baddies while you're doing the hacks, hey, you're in the action too, you're doing stuff still, you're part of the streamlined time frame on that, and it's all adding together. Yeah. Is there anything else you want to say on that, Richard?
No, I think you got that one pretty well. As far as making it a little bit more interesting than maybe if you've played like the Fallout video games hacks, because
Hmm.
we did take some inspiration from there for sure. Um, the panels as they're actually laid out will have different effects on them. So like a violet ADM was like every time you complete a hacking action, you just take a D3 damage because it's there attacking you.
Mm.
So that'll be kind of what causes the intrigue in the puzzle. And then we'll have like firewalls that'll say like this system has to get taken down before anything adjacent to it can get taken down. And so you're kind of building like a more interesting puzzle than just a like make a die roll type of thing.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that's how we're trying to um, walk the line between those two paradigms we're talking about there.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So you mentioned hacking, and that derailed me for a second there because I love my hacking. I love my hacking. But let's talk more specifically about characters in Vault. We talked a bit about the setting. We talked a bit about design philosophy and action. What what sort of characters are you playing? You're playing mercenaries. What sort of
Mm-hmm.
variety? What sort of breadth do you get from that? Do you have? Are you? Are some characters working for the megacorps? Are some characters bums on the street?
Um, we leave background fairly open for folks to interpret on their own. But we handle a lot of that through classes, which we'll get to in a
Hmm.
second. Something about just base characters is there are 6 different species in Vault. We consider them all kind of alien species to one another. Dwarves, elves, Faeborn, changelings, engineered organic soldiers, or as we call them, EOS for short, and of course good old humans. And they will kind of set your stats so that you pick that species. It has some limits and some breaks, and we've been very careful in how we made those, but that they are your kind of set base, and then we apply kind of everything else on top of that layer. And there are 4 styles to pick from in Vault. The magic wielder, the skilled kind of assassin, knows their way around, killing and running around and being fast. The Titan, the big rage fueled, strong bruiser tank, and the strategist, the brains of the operation, doing kind of that leadership, bardic role of like handing out buffs and making sure no one's getting in each other's way and making sure the mission's going according to plan. Richard, do you want to talk about classes and how they like give
Yeah.
us give us everything else for that character?
So we have 16 classes. And then, like I think you mentioned earlier, you're picking 2 of those at character creation. So you'll be mixing and matching. Um, and often that decision comes down to, do I want 2 things that are really complementary so that I am doing like a particular type of thing, shooting, fighting, talking, those types of deals really, really well? Or do I want to branch out and look for 2 that still fit really well together, but can give my character just something useful to do, like at any given moment?
Hmm.
And then once you've decided which one of those directions you want to go in, then it's a matter of looking at those classes and figuring out how all that's going to actually like puzzle together. We also use ability groups, so the classes will unlock different groups for effectively like a feat. Um, and so if you do 2 that are like laser focused on doing roughly exactly the same thing, you might only have access to like 2 groups. So that's going to limit the directions that you continue to progress your character in, as opposed to where if you go really broad, you can have 4 or 5 different groups that you all have access to. The other big thing that this lets us do is put a ton of those abilities into the game without causing too much analysis paralysis while you're leveling up. So I want to say the base game right now, as we have it, has something like 150 of those abilities built into it. But your character may only end up having access to 40 or 50 of those.
Yeah, they're big customizers into how your gameplay feels. Because of course, your classes set a bunch of stuff, but your abilities kind of really direct the things you'll be doing on most turns. It's just how good those get and stuff like that.
And
Nice.
then you'll have some context that you get based out of your classes, and based on what skills you choose that you want to be really good at, that will set some of the equipment that you just automatically come with. And then there's another phase after that where there's freebie equipment that you can just pick up for the type of character that you want to be. And I think that's pretty much everything in character creation. Assign
Yeah.
some skill points, assign some stat points.
Awesome.
Then then past character creation, as you advance that person, it's really granular. It's not like you got to level 1 and now here's a bunch of stuff. It's you got done with the next mission and here's a couple XP and here's a small bonus. And like you got the next mission, here's a small bonus. Then maybe like 5 or 6 down the line, we're like, here's a bigger bonus. That way you're always getting to tweak your kit and you're like, gosh, I wish I was better at swimming. Well, heck, get done with this mission and then teach your character how to swim in that downtime period.
And
Awesome.
all of those small bumps are choices. So you're like, the very first one you'll get is like, do I want 1 more hit point or do I want 2 more skill points? So that you can kind of, and then the types of the choices that they are will change. So like one further down might be like, do I want to be able to carry more gear or do I want 2 skill points? So that you're like constantly kind of looking through it and you have a lot of options and you feel like you're not just like, well, I guess that I got a hit point. I didn't really need a hit point, but I got one.
So you're not just unlocking a set standard drop down menu of what you get like you would in the Dragon game. When you advance your character, it's choosing bits and pieces that work best to make your character unique.
Yeah.
Awesome. So let me ask about this 2-class system, which I think is really interesting. How does that differ from general multi-classing? Do you go back and forth? Do you get access to different pools that you pull from? Do you level both classes simultaneously? What does managing 2 classes at the same time mean to a player?
So at character creation, you're picking 2. There is actually a point far enough down in the XP track to where you can actually decide to add a 3rd class to your classes or a second style to your character. So the trick with it is it's relatively front loaded. When you take your class, it's going to set all those base skills, weapon ranks, contacts, equipment, baseline abilities. As you level up a little bit, each one of them will have an ability that triggers at XP 13 that you just get another ability that goes into those classes. But once those classes have kind of dumped those initial things into your character, that's mostly what they've done. The other big things that you're really paying attention to again are like those ability groups to see like, well, my combination didn't have survival in the ability groups, so this one ability here that would be interesting to me isn't an option unless I go out of my way to find a way to add another style to my character, which is possible, but like that will eat up some of those resources that you could have spent making your companion into a giant turtle or any of those types of things. And then your question was about so
Yeah, so let me chime in on that point. That yeah, like what you're saying, it's front loaded. So you get a big kind of dump of stuff at the beginning, which is, there's a small learning curve to that, but it's not crazy. And it kind of sets that again that background for your character. So like your character was doing decking and info ripping and such, and so they have hacking skills. They have some hacking equipment. They've got that all kind of baked into that, and then you're picking something else. So let's call it bodyguard because you also want to be a tank for some reason. Heck, why not? And you have some heavy armor from that, and maybe an extra friend who's a high-ranking person that maybe you bodyguarded once. So you kind of smash those things together, and then it's about advancing the character as a whole, less than advancing the classes that you're playing as.
Gotcha.
yeah, that XP, those tiny XP bumps are improving upon your body of character, and the classes you've chosen act more as a background of like what you were good at, and now here's what you're going to be good at with all these new abilities that you get unlocked.
Excellent, excellent. So classes work like a foundation. They give you what your base build is, and then you improve upon that bits and pieces as you go.
Mm-hmm.
Love it, love it. Yeah. So that's classes and that's character nuance that way. But there's two things that we absolutely have to talk about when talking cyberpunk fantasy, and that is the cyberpunk, the cyberware aspect, and the fantasy spells and paranatural stuff. So of course this game has both. I think it probably work best to talk about the fantasy side of things first because it builds right into the setting of the system. This is well, tell me about that. It's a near future dystopian setting, but there's fey creatures. What's that all about?
You want me to take this one, Richard?
Yeah, you're gonna tell the face story.
I'm gonna tell the face story. So, um, our kind of origin myth is that the Fae, the mythologies, all of the unknown and weird and strange that existed on Earth before human times was palling around doing its thing, and dragons and fairies and rakshasas, whatever you want to have, um, and that as humanity developed iron weapons and iron tools, those became something that the Fae were, of course, allergic to. That's a common
Mhm.
mythos there. And humans learned how to kill Fae, and it scared the heck out of them. So they ended up leaving en masse. They worked themselves away into alternate dimensions, into onto different worlds, into pocket planes, wherever they could go. It kind of drove them crazy. It kind of messed with some and morphed others and warped some. But after camping out in the eons of bad space, and as humanity kind of got less and less metal into things, more and more plastics, they decided it was time to come back. And they made a bunch of deals with some unknown things, and they did their magics, and they used up their allotments, and they came crashing back to Earth through a big portal event. And we call that the Fey Tide in our lore. And they exploded back into the realms. Magic returned, and things started evolving that way. The ice caps got nuked because humanity was like, "Oh, hey, let's that's where they landed. Let's get rid of them there. Let's just blow them up." And super volcanoes, the melting ice caps, flooded the earth, blew everything up, and then we shoved everyone into dystopian megacities. And we have a couple of things we've kind of figured out where things we've really looked at the data of where big floodplains would be and where things would get taken out. So we're very uniform in our level of destruction across the world. But yeah, and then
Sorry, you're up.
Sorry, what was that?
I said sorry, you're up.
oh yes,
Yeah.
Europe's very underwater. Europe is
Ah,
very underwater. Yes. And some time goes by, humanity kind of works on some projects, gets AI up and running, good for us, right? To fight the Fae. And then that turns out to be a terrible idea, as one does in a cyberpunk game. And they turn on humanity and the Fae, so then they have to work together. The engineered organic soldiers get made to combat the AI as a rational thinking being. And we eventually kind of get down to the stalemate. So the magic has returned. There is big Swaziland controlled by AI. The net's gone blown up and gone crazy. We've got a special, you know, AI eating organism in the internet that's trying to keep everything safe. And that like a lot of nature has returned too. So there's big Swaziland where everything has gone back to the green or the land or however it would be. Um, and now there's a lot of unknowns back in the world of how things are.
nice.
So that's kind of the fantasy. That's the world take. That's as quick as I can sum all of that up,
Hmm.
because we have baked a lot into it.
No, that's very interesting. I love the metal is getting less and less pronounced. We're using plastics, we're using ceramics. So hey, here the Fae are coming back. That I think that's brilliant. So there is that sort of Fae nature fantasy element that's shoved together with the cyberpunk corporate chrome, and I'm very interested to see how that plays out. Let me direct more specifically. What does that look like to players? What is the magic system like?
So yeah, so the magic system, you'll have a magic stat based on essence. Uh, every turn, you'll generate a number of points equal to that. It's usually somewhere between like 2 and 5 at character creation. It can get as high as 9 or 10. Um, so all of our spells fit on for each school, like a transmutation style school like D&D. An entire school of magic fits on, with all of its rules descriptions, a tarot sized card front and back. um, and that's just because we kept the format for how these spells work very concise, and the rules for them very, very brief. There's still, with the words that we're using, a ton of different uses for knowing even just one of these spells. You can do a bunch of different things with it once you actually get into like playing the game. But it'll have a cost, it'll have a range, you'll pay that cost in MP, and then you've done that spell. It uses up a snap action. So in our game, you get a snap action, a move action, and a combat action every turn. So casting a spell and doing a fighting thing of some kind is something that the magical characters are doing basically every turn.
Awesome.
You can also get more of those snap actions so that you can cast more of those spells. And the other thing that you can do, particularly with a lot of the like damage dealing spells or like targeting spells, is something called surging, where you spend more MP on the spells to add additional d6s to those effects.
Mm.
And that's basically the entire system.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's pretty snappy, short, quick. And we try to like Rich was saying, keep those descriptions short so you're not reading 12 paragraphs of how, grease works or something.
Right. Right. So the spells in this game, you said they all fit on a tarot size card. Does that mean they are more open-ended play as you need keyword based spells, or are these actual drop down menus like this is grease, this is what it does, this is fireball, this is what it does?
Yeah, we have Fireball. It has very set things. It does an AoE big fire blast deal. But like, I think perhaps because of the way we structured our base rules, the only words that were really necessary there were like, even in the chart is already like how large the AoE is and what its range was and all that kind of stuff. So really all we had to do was add on the like extra things that made Fireball awesome. So like instead of individually surging your damage with Fireball, you can just spend 2 MP to surge all of its damage for that entire attack.
Mm.
And like that's what created the flavor with Fireball. The other cool thing that I think there's a second sentence in there, because all of our fire spells in particular have an effect where if you're already on fire when you cast the spell, they're much, much better at dealing damage.
Mm.
So I think Fireball also says like +3 damage if your target was already on fire when you cast the spell. But like those are the two sentences on Fireball, and that's it.
Nice.
Or we have like our favorite spell is Wormhole, and you basically set up one portal on one side and one portal on the other side, and you can like move through it. You can't attack through it, but you can like shunt yourself to other sides and do a lot of combat tricks or go through walls if you need to.
Mm.
And that one has the most text of any spell that we have, and that's where it gets kind of like open ended, but like we try to set like, okay, you can't attack through it because that's a little silly, and you can't enemies can move through it too because it's just a big open portal and there's no controlling that. So like
Mm.
some of that's defined, but otherwise, yeah, it's kind of like blow it up or buff your buddy or move over here or revive someone, those kind of things.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, so it seems with the way you've structured your turn economy that uh, being engaged in combat is thrown in there. You also have the ability to engage with the magic system. It seems you've worked the cyberspace element all into this one action economy. So everything is going on more or less at the same time, keeping everybody involved.
Yep.
Awesome. Awesome. So that's the fantasy magic side of this. What about the chrome plated side of this? When I think cyberpunk, when I think chrome, I think pages and pages and pages and pages of cyberware. What does cyberware, what does technology play in Vault? What does that look like?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Erik will definitely have more to follow up on. We did really enjoy the concept from other games that cyberware would diminish your magical abilities. So you really are making a decision between those two things. We also added in a third choice just to cover very briefly. You've played a bunch of these games, so you'll already know about this. There's always like one or two people at the table who are like, I don't really want to do the magic thing, and I don't really want to do the cyberware thing. I just want to be like a normal dude
Hmm.
who's like in this world. So we created an ability that anybody can take that's just all natural, and they just get more experience for going through this world as a regular dude. So they will level through the XP
Or
10
do that.
faster than other people by foregoing both of these systems. And people have really enjoyed playing that. It ends up coming out basically as powerful as the others do.
Hmm.
So we feel like we've done pretty well there. Cyberware in particular, it's not pages and pages. It's like a page. There's a lot of options there. I think there's like 17 different options there, and then each one of those options has rankings with menus that you can pick off of those ratings. So, like when you upgrade your arms, they'll get stronger, but also you're picking another thing. Like, do you want to make them natural looking, or do you want to put a weapon compartment in? Or do you want to have more armor value because you have these big metally arms? So every time you're upgrading that, you're picking off of those menus for some of those items. And then others just make you better at doing things. This one just, these tensile muscle fibers just made me stronger and faster, and that's all that they did. And then the way you figure out how much of that you can cram into your body is you double your essence score. So it'll have a CP cost of, like, the arms are like 1 each. So if your essence was 3, you'd have 6 of these CP points to spend. And that could just be 5 points in upgrading your arms and making your arms super awesome. That'll get progressively more expensive as the ratings get higher, but that's the concept there. And then every one of those CP that you spend will detract from any magic value you might have somehow had. So it kind of doubles and then halves again to make it highly inefficient to try to do the two things at the same time.
Hmm.
Though in testing, people have tried it. They didn't like it long term. So we don't recommend it.
Hmm.
Yes, I'm the one. I'm the one who's tested. I had to try to see how silly I could get the bounce back to be on putting robot parts on my cool pirate shaman. Anyway,
Hmm.
um, yeah, and another aspect that you touched on as far as like cyberpunky stuff is megacorp stuff. Our cities are all ruled by a council of 5, the 5 biggest employers
Hmm.
of the city. So you'll find somewhere like Denver maybe being ruled by our Atlas Industrial and some of the other like mining or other kind of companies like that. I just want to touch on that briefly.
Nice,
Yeah,
nice.
voting is having a job in our dystopia.
I can see that progression. uh, yeah. uh, well, obviously we could go on quite a long time just talking about different character nuances and how different rules play out. But I think that's a pretty good representation of the Vault gameplay and what players, what GMs would get out of it. Do you have any other? And then we'll talk specifically about the Kickstarter. But before we get to that, do you have any final big selling points on the player side, on the GM side, anything to really focus on, draw them to Vault?
Go
Ooh,
ahead, Erik.
yeah. So we think we've made something that's very clean, it's very unique, it's very much its own thing, despite, having a very common setting. We love what we've built, and we think it really lends a very tactical and kind of crunchy aspect to it while keeping things fast paced. So we enjoy kind of the balance we've hit with um, not having too many decisions to make, but also having a good amount so that you're feeling like you're involved in customizing things the way you want them to be.
Nice, nice. Uh,
Um,
go
Go
ahead.
ahead. Oh, so fate is, I think, the one thing we didn't talk about at all, and I think it's actually a pretty big selling point for players and game masters and pretty much everyone involved. And it is our extra effort system, and it really does take away. It's basically, if you were to use like a fifth edition analogy, it's kind of like luck but better on every single character.
Hmm.
Um, and the idea is that you want to be able to build up these really exciting moments where like this die roll needs to work, or like the entire mission has gone wrong and like there's going to be terrible ramifications. And then you want to be able to set that number somewhere that feels appropriate for the tension. But you know, as a game master, that if you set it too high, 50-50 odds your players fail and there's just nothing that can be done about it.
Hmm.
In this situation, you know that the players have this resource that they can get back very slowly if they're focusing on getting it back, so that when those big moments are getting built up, they can decide how they're going to spend those resources to make sure that those big climatic moments either feel like they got so unlucky that it didn't happen after all that effort that they put into it, or it did work because they put all of that effort into it. And I feel like that really helps put a finer point on some of those big dramatic moments that game masters are always trying to
Makes
set.
you feel like an action movie star when you use up those points.
Yeah.
Yes, nice. Yeah, there's nothing more disappointing than finally getting to that part of the session where your character is in the zone, this is what they do, and then you roll a 3. And so much for grabbing that pay data off the web. I guess we'll just go home now. Uh, no, that's great. I love games that include a resource, a token, whatever it may be, that allows you to say, "Hey, this is what I want to do right now. Let's make that work." Because
Mhm.
we're all here. The way I do TTRPG is that it's a collaborative storytelling game. We're all here to tell a great story, and most of the time, the dice know the story they want to tell. But that's not always the it's not always the interesting story that you want to be a part of, because if you're a decker that can't seem to hack anything, it's not really going to be fun for you. So I really like that idea. Really like that idea. Awesome. Uh, okay, let's jump into the Kickstarter in the last little bit that we have tonight. Uh, Kickstarter for Vault. I see. Last time I checked, you're almost at 90% funded. There's still well over 20 days to go. Let me go ahead and drop that link, actually, so anybody following along can head over to the Kickstarter and see what that is all about. But talk to me about what you get by backing. I know there's a digital tier, there's a physical tier, and then there's the world shaper and things above that. So what
Yeah,
pitch your Kickstarter?
absolutely. Every like I said at the onset, every tier comes with all the digital goodies, so I will not bother with explaining that all again. But uh, the first tier digital rulebook. Our rulebook comes with your World Shaper guide, aka your GM guide, built into it. No need to have two books. No need to buy two books. All slapped together. We just thought that was easier for everybody. Next tier up, physical book. Who doesn't like having something on the shelf? It'll look pretty. Does all the things. Again, has everything in it. Comes with all the digital goodies. Um, our main gig is the World Shaper box tier. It's our thing. You get the tokens. You get measuring tools, so that because we're a gridless system, so it's you have to measure things out and figure out where stuff is going. Very kind of war gamey there, but and scooting folks around. You get some dice. You get all the cards, 130 different cards with enemies, chase, hacking, infiltration, magic spells, everything you need to run. All the games is in there, including the GM screen with all the slots in it for everything. Nice quick reference guide. And what am I?
D6s.
Yep, dice. I mentioned dice, cards, boss boards. The boss boards will be digital, and if we hit some stretch goals, they'll be physical ones that go into the box so that you can have them to hand out to people instead of just printing on your own. Um, last thing is our Tyrannosaurus tier, and we're probably going to open up some tiers maybe towards the end of our campaign. So sign up for our email list, sign up to get notified, because we might be adding some things in as we keep going here, to entice some more people into backing at different levels. But the last, our kind of white whale, which is our Tyrannosaurus, because we are Team Rex Games tier, is to design a sample mercenary, which will be part of the book art, part of the sample character sheets that are handed out with digitally. We will commission that art for you and get something made that fits in our setting, and our world, and our theme, but is the guy you made. Your name will go in the Vault credits, website, and book. You'll get an intro session from Team Rex Games. One of the people, it'll be Richard, it'll be me, or it'll be our buddy Zach, and we'll run a 6-hour game for you. We'll walk you through character creation. We'll do a mission for you. We'll make sure you guys understand the rules for you and your whole table. That will be all digital, but because of times and travel and all that stuff. But that's in there. You get to join our playtest group, and we'll shunt you works as we get them, ironed out. We're really close to being developed, so that's a big bonus to us, is to be able to have people look at our stuff and tell us, how much they like it and what things they think need to get changed. And then you get a whole box set and all that other good stuff. But that's the big tier as it stands right now. And what we're hoping for on stretch goals and things are putting more components in the box, filling that out, um, uh, getting more resources, more bosses, more art commission for our book, because we'd love to fill it up with custom art instead of just stock art. And the whole sample merc thing, we're going to start including tokens so that you have, because we're a miniatureless game, because miniatures are crazy and they're awesome. That might be the next one we run. But tokens will have your character's art on them. So, if we hit those goals, and you're part of the T-Rex tier, you can see your guy in the box set, which is cool. And the a very far stretch goal that we have is finishing up the website, which will have a character creator. It'll have an enemy creator. It'll have a boss creator. You can write up your own cards for hacking or environments or whatever. And the plan is also to make a mission generator. So you sat down for the night, you've made all these missions as the GM, your players like, I don't want to do that one, I don't want to do that one, I don't want to do that one, but we got to do a job because we're out of money. And you're like, well, freak. I mean, like, I made all this effort. So you just slap a button, it'll spit out a little script and maybe some deets, maybe a monster to fight, an environment to be in. That is some long distance stretch goals we're hoping to hit, though.
All right, nice. Yeah, GM resources, especially digital GM resources, are incredibly helpful nowadays. Well, you anticipated my next question, which was stretch goals, and that all sounds fantastic. And it seems you have plenty of time left to go. You're almost completely funded already, and I see you have, as you said, a number of stretch goals going well and above that. So I and wish you all the success in not only funding but getting through all of that stuff. Definitely go check out the Kickstarter. I believe towards the bottom there are some other videos explaining the basics of the systems. Another interview on there. So there's not just this you're following along with now, but other things you can check out there as well. Let me just ask what's the timeline looking like with Vault as far as finishing production of this and actually getting to fulfillment?
Let me put in one small note, and this that also we have the free demo available. It's on our website and
Yes.
on the Kickstarter page. So, if you thought this sounded cool and you want to try it yourself, boom, it's out there in the world. All the assets to do it digitally or do it physically available for you. But I'll turn it over to Richard to talk about where we're at with stuff.
Yeah, so the system's written. Um, the only section that we're still compiling sections to know exactly what it is that we want to say is maybe about 30% of the game master section. And that's mostly because we have just gained so much exposure since starting the Kickstarter.
Mm-hmm.
And we've already been able to run a survey or two about what people enjoyed about the demo and what they didn't, and how different things worked. And in general, as a company, we are eerily, people don't believe us, happy about criticism. We really like to hear what it is that people didn't like about our game so that we can start working on those things. We can't, obviously, different people will have mutually contradictory gripes about different things, so we won't be able to make everyone happy. But the reason why we have so much confidence in our game right now is because we've been able to listen to people up to this point, and it's really what we want to keep in our design philosophy going forward. So as we're hearing more about what people are liking as they play with the system, that's really helping inform those decisions on that game master section. And then we're going to do a big beta read. We're expecting the last of the development to be done 3 months after Kickstarter, and then the beta read happen, and then we regroup and see what we need to tinker with under the hood after that. And then we're planning to be delivering by December.
All right.
Physical by December, but digital versions will be earlier. And
yeah.
if you pledged at a level that has a PDF, which I believe is actually every level, we'll be sending those out earlier as well. Aiming for like June, July-ish. I believe we have it on the Kickstarter there when the digital will deliver. It will be sooner so that people can look at it and have the thing to play with. That's our goal.
Awesome. And then you said physical sometime around December.
Correct.
Excellent.
Barring no shenanigans in the
Right.
world market.
Right. Yeah. There's always complications, shipping, printing, stuff like that. But nice. Sounds like you have a great timeline moving towards that. The Kickstarter itself has, I believe, 22 days left to it. It concludes on March.
9th. Yep.
March 9th or March 10th.
Oh, probably depends on time zone stuff.
Time
but
zones.
March
Okay.
9th, yeah, is yeah. So get in on March 9th.
All right, March 9th then. I was going off of what Kickstarter was telling me. Time zones are weird. Happy time zone to everybody out there. March 9th, by March 9th, just to make sure you're in on it. But that actually segues nicely after March 9th. Say they hear about this, we're talking to the audience in the future that is watching this on YouTube. Hello. What if this audience would like to get into Vault? Is there any way for them to do that between March 11th and sometime in December?
As soon as maybe a little bit after we have released our digital version of our game to our backers, because they're the first people we want to take care of, we'll be making available digital assets, PDFs, rulebooks, so on and so forth, and various different things. We're still kind of figuring out exactly what that all needs to MSRP at, but we'll be releasing those website, DriveThruRPG, itch, the usual places as you would. And then depending on what our quantities look like for manufacturing of the physical product, we'll be working on getting those into local game stores as quick as we can.
Very nice. All right. Well, I think that just about covers the Kickstarter and all of that. Let me just ask toward last question here before we wrap up. What is next for Team Rex Games?
After this, we really want to do a miniatures line. It's the one thing that we all, when we had to make the decision not to do miniatures in the box set, we were all really sad. We're all big miniature war game players who love miniatures and pretty much every aspect of that hobby. So we're pretty sure that's what it's going to be. We're tinkering with some ideas. I don't want to promise too much of anything, but I would really love to see us both do a miniatures line in combination with you build these big boss boards via a system, and then they fight each other in a
kind of monster of the week setup. Yeah,
game that can both support the role-playing game and be its own standalone kind of miniature battle game. But there's been no.
Step one is Vault. Step one is get Vault, make it good, dump it on, get it to everyone who needed it. Yep, that is big step one. But yeah, that's an awesome question.
Awesome. Well, I will keep a lookout for that in the future then. Let me just throw it back to you one last time. What do you want to leave our audience with as far as Vault? Closing remarks.
Go ahead, buddy.
Let's see. We hope to be the next big cyberpunk fantasy game. There's a lot of us out there in the world, and there's a lot of great options to pick from. And we'd love it if you choose Vault to be yours, because we've put a lot of love and care into it.
Excellent, excellent. Yes, I can definitely see that just looking through what I have looked through here. It looks like fantastic art, very evocative system, and this is definitely a game that I would love to have in physical copy on my shelf. I feel like this would be a super fun game to have people sit down around a table, look at all the resources, actually have that tactile experience, and play it out. So this is definitely going to be on my watch list, on my wish list. So if you out there have enjoyed this interview, you want to learn more about Vault, head over to that link there. I will drop that again in case it's cycled through. Go check out Vault. Go check out the website. Go check out the Kickstarter. And follow them on Twitter. It's at Vault RPG, correct?
It is.
Awesome, awesome. And I believe you've joined the RPGs Uncovered Discord. So if anyone wants to say hello to yet another fantastic indie creator, stop on by, join our Discord, say hello. That's all I have today for our WIP Workshop creator interview. It's been a pleasure talking with both of you. I'm really excited for Vault. I've been looking for a new cyber fantasy installment for a while because it's a very particular vibe, and this looks like a very fresh, very modern, new approach to this, and I'm very excited for it. So that's where we're going to conclude. Thank you for watching. Go check out the system. It looks fantastic. Make sure to tell other people about it. Let's hit that 20K Kickstarter goal, and hopefully even past that to get even more of those cool stretch goal resources. But I will leave you with that for tonight. Check back in the weeks to come for more WIP Workshop creator interviews on Wednesday. We also have our normal RPGs Uncovered series every Saturday at 4:30 p.m. EST, where we are checking out Cyber Rats, a Lumen-based game, and that'll teach you everything you need to know to play the game through a demo play mini-series that's all kinds of fun. So keep an eye out for more of that in the future. Come hang out on Twitter, come hang out on Discord, and last time, go check out Vault, because it's gonna be an experience. Yes, thank you both of you. We're gonna wrap up here. Everybody, happy time zone, and enjoy some more cyber fantasy mayhem.